How we show up for others is a direct reflection of how we show up for ourselves. Take a few minutes to join myself, Teresa Haynes with the Hope Center of the Eagle River Valley, and Kayla Bettis with Eagle Valley Behavioral Health as we discuss ways to practice courage, compassion, and connection with ideas from Brene Brown's best-selling book, The Gifts of Imperfection. Thank you so much, Kayla, for joining me. I'm so excited that you're here and that we can spend some time talking about this incredible book, The Gifts of Imperfection, Brene Brown. I was joking, you have an amazing copy here, and mine is a little bit worn. I got it years ago, and then just picked it back up in preparation for us talking today. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, and shout out to the Bookworm for having a lovely edition. But it's important that even if we read these books over and over again, that we do revisit them, especially when it's so purposeful to where we're at in our lives today.
Absolutely. So Brene Brown, she really talks about in her book this idea of this journey to wholehearted living. And she really dives into this idea of our shame stories and how shame loves secrecy. So when we have a trusted person or people that we share our stories of shame with, how powerful that can be to move through it. And you know, sometimes when I talk about these things, it's like, oh, I'm doing fine with that. I'm doing just fine with that. I don't have any shame. Like, I've worked so hard on myself. I'm really doing good. And then in preparation of doing this video and sitting with you, I start to get in my own story of maybe I'm not good enough, or I can't talk well enough, or I don't have enough eye makeup. I don't even know how to put that on, or whatever it is for any individual, but certainly what it can show up and look like for me. And then I'm like checking myself like, okay, you are enough just as you are, Teresa, but naming it and naming that's what's happening with me. I get into this comparison and shame and not good enough, and especially in the face of doing something new and maybe challenging.
That's so true, and it comes down to we are good enough, and we practice that without realizing it.
Yes.
So often we're that person for people in our lives, for our families, for our loved ones, for our coworkers. We could be maybe that confident person that they come to, and we, without thinking, handle that for them. But when it comes to us, we have to remind ourselves, which Brene Brown does, on that self-compassion. I know that I wear a love bracelet that myself and my family all wear together to remind ourselves that, yes, we're kind to other people, and it's something we practice and we preach, but what about being kind to ourselves? Because when we are, it reminds us, yes, this is the foundation of who I am. This is why I'm good at my job, because I remind myself that I am worth it and I'm capable.
So I love what you're saying about self-compassion. So in Brene Brown's book, she identifies 10 guideposts, kind of 10 guideposts in this journey for wholehearted living. And one of the guideposts that she references is cultivating self-compassion and gratitude. Is there something else, like a mantra or something that you say to yourself, especially when you're faced with something challenging, or you feel fearful, or you're going into a vulnerable situation, or is there something that you kind of use for yourself?
Everyone has a different mechanism that really lifts them up and brings them to that space. And for me, it's exercise. I love running to clear my mind. I love putting on a nostalgic playlist that brings me back to a time where I didn't have certain levels of responsibility that I do now. I didn't have the fear of making a mistake under this type of pressure at this phase in my life. And I can go back to that space of carefree clear-headedness with really enjoying the moment for what it is. But so often, and I know we tell this to our clients, affirmations are so powerful to remind ourselves of our own capabilities. Do you have one that you practice?
Mine is really simple. When I am just like, going into a situation and my underarms are sweating and I'm gotta kind of work up to this courage or being in this place and for me, it's often really wanting to show up as who I am and not let all of this get in the way of doing that. And mine is, you got this, Teresa. You got this.
And it's
deep
so
breath.
Simple.
You got it.
That's right.
So another one of the guideposts I want to talk about is really about cultivating gratitude and joy. So letting go of scarcity and fear of the dark, as Brene Brown puts it. so eloquently in her book. So I love this idea of naming the fears, recognizing the fears, walking through the fears, sharing them with a trusted person as kind of a path to cultivate joy.
It's a way to challenge them, like you said, giving them a name and confronting them in a safe space with a person, maybe with a shared experience. Because so often when we talk about fear, wanting to reach into gratitude, the person next to us very well could have gone through something quite similar. So if you have that bond and that relationship and you're able to talk about that connection, it makes it more realistic for what you're going through.
So I really like a quote that Brene also shares in her book in terms of joy. It says, "Twinkle lights are the perfect metaphor for joy. Joy is not constant. It comes to us in moments, often ordinary moments. Sometimes we miss out on the burst of joy because we're too busy chasing down extraordinary moments." I love what she says about that because I think so many of us can get caught up in this, well, it's just a normal day and nothing, we can just kind of go down that path of, there's not enough time, I didn't get everything done, and I didn't have enough to sleep, and I didn't have lunch today even because I was so busy. We can all get caught up in that, but really making a practice of capturing those moments of joy. So just on the fly, tell me something that brought you joy.
Celebrating wins. Having that moment where your child can call you and say, "Oh my gosh, I finished this cross-country race and it was amazing," and living in that space with them rather than rushing on to the next thing. It's important to note that feelings of joy are because we also understand feelings of sadness. One complements the other. So we have to give space for both. And so often we get caught up in feeling in those negative moments because it takes that much more effort rather than saying, I'm going to live in this joy right now and have that be the foundation of my day.
So with that, also the same guidepost, she also talks about gratitude. I feel like gratitude is something we all read about, we've got journals about that we've never used. So I have a really good friend who has a giant jar that she starts on New Year's Day, every day, and puts one thing in every day that she's grateful for, and the entire family does it. At the end of the year, the New Year's Eve celebration is to take all of those out and to read them. I think it's an amazing idea, and I have not done it. I think it's an amazing idea. It's on my to-do list, but I haven't done it. So why are we even talking about this? What is even important about this? Why is this even meaningful? And in my mind, it's this whole idea of this wholehearted journey, this wholehearted living, this being authentic, showing up for yourself, self-compassion. You know as well as I do, being in the mental health world, people are struggling. Life is hard. We're still in a pandemic. Many of us can't take one more thing. And although this practice may feel daunting initially, it really is an easeful way of common humanity, joining together. We are in this together, we can do this together, and really our work is just being authentic and showing up.
It's reminding ourselves that this can be a relief because we take care of a broken bone immediately so we can continue to function and be present for ourselves, for others. We need to do the same thing when it comes to our mental and behavioral health so we can continue to be our best wholehearted self and really practice that authenticity across the board.
Resilience is important.
That's right.
Building these things up can help us really face the challenging things.
Having that support system is part of that resilience, and tuning in and being here with us today is an example of that support system. It's giving space for what we really need when it comes to our mental and behavioral well-being.
Thank you so much for joining me, Kayla, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. This has been a great conversation and an amazing book, best-selling book, The Gifts of Imperfection, Brene Brown. If you have not read it, I hope you're inspired to read it. Please pick it up. The Bookworm in Edwards, an amazing bookstore. And also go to her website, brenebrown.com. There's a ton of tools, resources, printable, free tools, quote cards. There's just an amazing amount of things on her website to check out as well.
You can start that affirmation jar right away.